The following program is made possible in part by the Dayton Bar Association.
Hello and welcome to You and the Law. I'm Mike Monta, your producer and host for today's program. And tonight, which is the night of the NCAA final basketball game, it doesn't start till 9 o'clock, so if you're watching us, stay tuned for this interesting hour program. The topic for today's program is Veterans Treatment Court, and joining me as guests on this program tonight, the originator of the program in Montgomery County is Judge Dennis J. Adkins on the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court, and the Veterans Outreach Coordinator with the Veterans Administration, Teresa Sichman, both doing a fine job with this program, a new program, and I think you'll be interested to find out about that. Before we get to our discussion, let me remind you that You and the Law is a monthly presentation produced here at the studios of the Dayton Access Television. DATV is on Channel 5. It's the public access channel of Time Warner Cable Network in Dayton, Ohio. The program is also cable cast on tape delay. It's probably not tape anymore, but it's on delay on the public access channels of the Time Warner Network through the auspices of the Miami Valley Cable Council. Probably on Channel 5, if I didn't say that already. The executive producer for the program is former domestic relations judge and the originator of this program back in the 1980s, former Judge Mike Brigner. It's an audience participation program. We're coming to you live and in color. We also stream live at DATV.org. And we are sponsored by the Dayton Bar Association, which you saw on the logo to start the program. We'll talk a little bit more about them as the program goes on. So let me reintroduce our guests on the program. We'll let you listen to them, and they'll tell you a little bit about their backgrounds and familiarity with today's topic, which is Veterans Treatment Court. We'll first turn to Judge Adkins. Good evening, Judge. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, I am, as you introduced me, a judge from Montgomery County Common Pleas Court. I'm one of 11 judges there. I realized this year, 2014, that I've been involved in the justice system for now about 40 years. I started out as a police officer, worked my way through law school, went to the University of Dayton as an undergraduate, and graduated from Chase College of Law. I practiced for about 27 years before taking the bench. And as of last year, we decided that there was a need in this county to assist veterans who are involved in the criminal justice system. So I took it upon myself, along with others, and formed an advisory committee. We worked for about a year on setting up a Veterans Treatment Court, and we got it off the ground officially December 11th of 2013.
Thank you. And turning to Teresa Sichman. Good evening, Teresa. How are you tonight?
Good evening. I'm doing well. Well, I've been involved with the Dayton VA since 2009, and then I took over this program in 2011. At that time, they were looking for a Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator to work with the veterans involved with the legal system. So we had someone doing it kind of collaterally, but I decided that this was something I had an interest in. My background is I'm a licensed independent social worker. I graduated from The Ohio State University, both undergrad and with my master's. So I've been doing some different areas of dabbling in social work, and when this position came open, what struck me about it is I've always noticed, at least with anybody coming out of the prison system, that there was always a lack of assistance for them. You know, we didn't really rehabilitate, and they just kind of got left out there. And from a personal standpoint, actually my sister has been involved with the legal system quite a bit, my youngest sister, and she's currently serving time in Dayton Corrections. And I just have noticed with her that no one's been there to kind of help her through the process. And this is kind of my way to give back. I like working with the veterans, and this gives me a chance to maybe do something for them that hasn't been able to been done for her. So when this position opened up, it just kind of called to me. This is something I really wanted to do. So my job really is to work with the veterans when they get their legal issues in order to assess them and look at what the Dayton VA healthcare realm can provide for them in terms of their mental health, their physical issues, substance abuse, whatever their needs are, and then work back with the courts regarding some treatment options to address those issues.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to both of you. And why don't we start out by talking about what is a Veterans Treatment Court? Is it different than a regular court? When does it get started, and what is the service to whoever comes in front of the court?
Well, it's what we call a specialty court within the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court. It's set up to deal strictly with veterans. We only have veterans in the program. These are veterans that have become involved in the criminal justice system, and many of them because of what happened to them while in the military. We have several that have served several deployments over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what we're finding out, the public is finding out as a whole, that the veteran community has known for quite a while that many of these veterans come back with physical wounds from the war, but they also come back with emotional and mental wounds as well, such as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, depression, substance abuse. And we find that they are getting themselves involved in the criminal justice system for the first time that maybe they weren't involved before they went into the military. So we're reaching out to those veterans, trying to treat the actual problem that got them involved in the criminal justice system is what we're trying to do. What's unique about it is it's veterans helping veterans. Everyone in the court, this Veterans Treatment Court, is a veteran. My probation officer is even a disabled veteran. So they are watching what happens to their fellow veteran. There's a camaraderie it's still there like it was in the military. They help each other. They support each other. They're there for the entire docket, so they see what happens to their fellow veteran. What I do need to emphasize, though, this is not an easy program. This program is designed to be tougher than regular probation. We expect more out of the veterans. And the main thing we expect out of them is truthfulness and accountability. And I stress that to every veteran that appears in front of me, is that they have to be accountable for their actions, and they are learning that. And we've already seen some great progress in some of these veterans that I've been very pleased about.
Okay, just very briefly, if you just tuned in, you're watching You and the Law. With Judge Dennis Adkins and Teresa Sichman of the VA as guests. The number, which you don't see on the screen right now, but hopefully we'll put that up so you can check it out, is 223-5311. And operators are standing by as there it is right there. And jot it down, call in if you have a question. Teresa, you work over at the VA, which is nowhere near logistically where the court is. How do you get involved with the program and with the people who become eligible for the services of the program?
Well, as the judge mentioned, this is really an intensive program for them. So what most people see or what the veterans see is the small amount of time we spend in court. The majority of our time is spent behind the scenes. So most of a good amount of referrals come from the pre-sentencing investigations through the probation department. So they recognize that this is a veteran, so then they contact me and say, okay, this guy or girl has identified as being a veteran. Are they an eligible veteran? So then I'm able to check to see if they are eligible for VA services, and then I provide that information back.
What would they have to do to be eligible, just in case they're out there watching?
To be an eligible veteran for VA services, the basic criteria is after about September of 1980, you have to have served at least 2 years of active duty service, meaning you have to have been activated. So you've had, right now that would mean you've been deployed. You know, you've received orders to be deployed. Before that, as long as you made it out of basic training, you're eligible based on your discharge criteria. So the second piece of that is you have to have either an honorable or a general discharge to be eligible for VA treatment. And there is a third criterion that's income-based, but we don't run into that too often.
Okay.
You know, usually don't find too many people making good money committing crimes.
Okay, and Judge, you indicated that the person has to, do they have to plead guilty, or can they be found guilty by a jury, or what is their eligibility within the court system?
Well, they come to the Veterans Court on several different ways. One, it could be a direct referral from the probation department where they've pled guilty to an offense. They have been referred for what we call a pre-sentence investigation. One of the recommendations is that veteran enter the Veterans Treatment Program for more intensive probation. Another way is we have an intervention in lieu of conviction program, which is sort of a diversion type of program, if you will, where someone enters a provisional plea of guilty. They enter the treatment program, and if they complete it, then the felony can be dismissed against them. We also get veterans who are on regular probation who are having difficulties or struggling or not doing what they're supposed to do. And then there's a referral from the regular probation department to the treatment court. And also sometimes when they're released from prison, they're released back into the community and they come into our program before they are totally released out to the public.
Is it voluntary?
It is voluntary. The ultimate decision on whether or not they meet our criteria is left up with me, with the advice of the advisory committee. But it is voluntary. No one's forced to enter this program. Each and every veteran will sign a contract saying what is expected of them. That contract is signed by the veteran, the probation officer, and myself. And they agree to follow the terms and conditions of the program and be accountable for their actions.
Viewers are probably wondering, is there something unique about the veteran service that has inspired, and I know this is the first program of this sort in our area, and it has taken off in other parts of the country. And of course we're in the 2010s now, and we've been through a number of recent wars in the past years. What was it that the legal system noted in coordination with the Veterans VA that got this going, do you think?
Well, I can answer statistically. What we have found, the studies have shown, is about 25 to 30% of the individuals that have been deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan have reported symptoms of mental problems and cognitive inabilities. So statistics are there that we have a big portion of these young men and women who are suffering mental problems when they come back from their deployments. We also know that 1 out of 6 Iraqi veterans develop some sort of substance abuse program. We also know that every day in this country, on average, there is 22 veterans who commit suicide. So we know the numbers are there, that these veterans are struggling. Here in Ohio, we have 900,000 veterans that live in this state. We are probably 5th or 6th in the United States, so there is a big need for this. And the statistics just keep coming and coming, because we've never had a war like this before. We've never had a war where someone was deployed 4, 5, and 6 times over there. We're also seeing more and more problems because on the good side, we're doing a much better job with the physical injuries. We are able to provide expert medical care to these veterans. And we've seen that in the news every day where they are, some of these horrific injuries, they're surviving, but they may survive the physical, but the mental is still there. So we are seeing these needs, and we're trying to meet those needs in our court.
You talked about multiple deployments, and of course, we don't have a draft anymore, so the service is voluntary. But you still have service for anybody who's been in before, even back to the Korean War, or Vietnam, or World War II.
We do. We actually have an individual from the Korean War. We have a couple from Vietnam, and we have from the first Iraqi War, the second, and from Afghanistan. So there's several decades there that we are serving in our court.
Okay. Let me take a very short break to let you know out there, if you're watching, and I hope you are, that you're watching You and the Law. We're sponsored by the Dayton Bar Association, which has been proudly serving our community and legal profession since 1883, which is now, what's that, 131 years, is that right? Yeah. And providing a variety of services, and I'm going to tell you about some of them. Our director is Bill Wheeler, who's been on the job for, how long has Bill been? 10 years?
Probably about 10 years now, I think.
Been doing a fine job since then, and the Dayton Bar Association has a lawyer referral service for assistance in locating a lawyer. The number over there is 222-6102. A notary public, if you want to be a notary, there's applications and testing for that. And a very important program, which, and I actually have a listing for that, Wills for Heroes, and qualified first responders, including firefighters, police officers, paramedics, correction and probation officers from federal, state, county, city, and town departments and agencies are eligible for that. If you don't have a will, you and your family, volunteer members from the Bar Association will help you out with that. The next one of these is on Saturday, April 26th, and it is, let's see, it's between 10 and 2 p.m. That's a Saturday at the Butler Technology and Career Development School Public Safety Education Complex, and that's located at 5140 Princeton Glendale Road in Liberty Township. If you didn't copy all of that down, call the Bar Association at 222-7902, isn't it? I think that's right. Or Google it and find out. But if you're eligible, that's a good thing to do for you and your family, to get a will done, and with our happy and friendly volunteers on Saturday mornings. Our website is www.daybar.org. Our telephone number here is 223-5311. There's also a lawyer referral service. You can get an appointment and talk to a lawyer for a half an hour for, it says here, $25 maximum. That's a deal, I guess. So check it out. And if you need anything, they'll be glad to help you. So we'll get back to our program. We're talking about Veterans Treatment Court tonight with Judge Dennis Adkins, who's the originator here in Montgomery County area, and Teresa Sichman, who is the coordinator. Let me see if I get your coordinator of the outreach for veterans at the VA. And they're here to answer all your questions. 223-5311, if we could have that on the screen. Everybody doesn't remember the number quite as well as I do. Of course, I've been doing this for 20 years, and the number hasn't changed, so that's why I know it. There it is. And if we could leave that up a little bit, and if folks who have questions want to call in, they can do that. So let's get back to what we're talking about. Teresa, tell us a little bit about generally the treatment eligibility guidelines, and I'm sure there are some, because I'm looking at them here. But tell us a little bit about them and what they do and what the folks have to do.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, the first thing is we need to make sure we're dealing with an eligible veteran. And then we actually do have one veteran in the court currently.
Now, do they have to have been deployed? I'm sorry to butt in. But
No, that's okay.
Like you said, been through basic training. Suppose somebody in 1978, no wars are going on then that we're involved in. Yeah, maybe we were. I'm not sure. But they didn't go anywhere. They're just maybe down at one of Fort Dix or something for a couple
If they were considered active duty,
Okay.
so that's their job and that's their career, as they are currently active duty, whichever branch, then they're eligible. The deployment applies more towards the reserves. So someone who's in the reserves, that they do this kind of on a part-time, voluntary basis or whatever, they only go in for their training once a month or a couple times a year or whatever. They're the ones that have to actually get the orders to be activated, to be deployed, to be out, and they have to have that 2 years. But if they're in there and that's kind of their job right now and they're considered active duty, then they'll easily meet that 2-year criteria.
Okay.
But in terms of eligibility and treatment eligibility, again, the first thing is we need to make sure we're dealing with an eligible veteran. And we do have one guy in the court currently that did have an honorable discharge, but he did not have enough time served. So the first key, again, is looking to see if we have an eligible veteran, and then I let the courts know that this is an eligible veteran for VA services. And then from there, if it is decided, because Judge Adkins won't always see all the veterans, so it could be, again, in front of any of the other 10 judges or himself that this person could be coming in front of. So then it's a referral from whatever source, whether it be the probation officer, the pre-sentencing investigation, and so forth, as the judge mentioned. Then that judge then can decide then to transfer it over to Judge Adkins if he's agreeable to take the case. If the person is going to be placed in the Veterans Court, then they'll let me know, and I'll get with the veteran then to schedule an assessment. So at that point,
So you personally talk to everybody that
Correct.
goes through it? Okay.
Correct. So I meet with them and do an assessment, and again, I'm a licensed independent social worker, so my job is to do what we call a psychosocial assessment on them, to look at, again, what are their struggles, what's led to this, what kind of mental health, substance abuse, healthcare needs. Basically, again, I'm looking at whatever needs the VA can provide. From there, I put together some recommendations. And not everybody, again, it's very individualized. That's the nice thing, too, about this is, this person's not going to be the same as this person. So each plan is individualized for the person, and what they need to follow up is individual for them. So it's not like one-size-fits-all model that we're going to hope everybody will succeed using that. So then I provide that information back to the court on here's the recommendations, and then from there, that's what we look to make sure they're going to comply with. But sometimes, they may have some mishaps. They may continue using substances or anything else. Their drug screens are bad. They're just struggling, just whatever else. And that's really where the behind-the-scenes work really takes place a lot. The probation officer, Thomas Blotter, and myself, we're in, I say almost daily communication, but we are. And he was just off for a few days. I had to ask him who was going to be covering for him. But, we're in constant communication as to, what issues are coming up. This person didn't show for probation. This person, we had one person that didn't show for court, so where did they end up at? So even the judge, he'll call, he gets the reports. I send the reports over a week before court at least. So what my job is then is to look at their treatment to make sure they're following up with their treatment, their recommendations, and how they're doing. The judge looks at that information ahead of time, the probation officer does, and then sometimes they'll call me, say, the judge's like, well, I've got a little concerns about this, what can we do maybe ahead of time before we go in front of court? And then again, that treatment team meeting is where we kind of really sit together and kind of hash out what's going to be the plan for this. And again, it's just so we're a unified front. So when we're going into the court, we all know what's kind of going to happen, or possibly, they may be able to convince the judge otherwise, but again, that way we're on kind of a unified front on what we're going to do. But again, that could change. But really, it's kind of prepping the judge on what he's going to be discussing with them, and we kind of say the judge has to take on a new role with this. Normally you think of a judge as a punitive role, and this kind of program allows him to, we have a few classes in psychology now is what he says. So he has to be kind of another role, and kind of look at what treatment's going to help them also. So there's a lot that goes into this besides what we see that whole couple hours in court.
So, Judge, you're one of, 13 judges on the Common Pleas bench with various dockets.
11 that's on the general division.
Okay, in the general division, 11. And these aren't all on your docket. Once the VA makes recommendations over, what is your role, and is your decision of who gets into court like the last one, or do you have other panels or advisors that you check with before you get going with each individual person?
We do. The main ones I rely upon is Teresa for one, and Tom Blatter, our probation officer, as another. And we will, as Teresa said, we look at it as the individual, what that individual needs, what we can do to help that person. And then I make the final determination whether or not they're a good candidate for the Veterans Treatment Court. Again, it's strictly voluntary. It's up to the veteran whether or not they want to participate. And if they do, then we will bring them into the program. We'll set up an assessment. They'll be giving me recommendations what the veteran should do, and we'll lay out a plan for that particular veteran and put them through the program. We basically have 3 phases in our program. We start them out with phase 1, which is sort of the assessment part, where we determine what they need. Do they need substance abuse treatment? Do they need mental health treatment? And that is worked on by the VA and our probation department together to determine what the needs are. Then once we get them started in the program, then we will assess them again to see whether or not they're ready to advance to our second phase. And phase 2 is sort of a maintenance program. We want to make sure that they're maintaining this. When you are hooked upon substance, or if you have a mental illness, it's not just them quitting for a week or two. This is a long-term program that we want to make sure they're abiding by. And once they've gone for quite a while in phase 2, then we'll advance them to phase 3. Phase 3 is sort of the integration back to their family, back to the community, and so forth. And what's unique, I think, with the court is we're dealing with the individual, and we're dealing with more aspects than just you would think on probation. We're dealing with people that their families have split. Some people are homeless. They don't have jobs. So we're dealing with all aspects of their life, not just their mental health or substance abuse.
And when they get into the Veterans Court, then are they off of the probation with the individual judge they had, and they're just in the Veterans Court probation, or is it a dual type thing then?
No, they are completely transferred to my docket. I am the judge for them at that point in time. So if they succeed, that's great. If they don't succeed, I am the one that has to determine what sanction or what action to take against them. It does not go back to the other judge. It stays with me once it's transferred.
Okay, and I know this is, you've been working on it a long time, but it's, what are we, 4 months into it?
Yes.
So what would be a typical length of probation? And I know each case is a little bit different, but with the program, which is a little bit different than regular probation, how long would they be on it, or does that vary also?
Well, as you're aware, Mike, generally in order to be put on probation can be anywhere up to 5 years. In this program, we estimate the very minimum that someone could be on if they come in with minimum problems is probably about 9 months. I would think that anywhere from 9 months to probably 18 months is a realistic approach to this program. So you're looking at a year and a half that they would be involved with me.
Okay. Okay, once everybody gets into the program, and I guess everybody doesn't get in all at once, they come in as they're sent and approved by the court. What would be a typical, we talk about going into court, what would be a typical session of court? What happens at that? And what are the, and I know it's not just the two of you, there's other staff personnel. What's everybody's role, and how do they help out the veterans?
Again, we have the behind-the-scenes work, but then we meet as a treatment team. So we have the judge, myself, the probation officer, the supervisor for the probation department, manager of the probation department. We have a prosecutor or two, a public defender or two, our peer mentor coordinator. So we have a very broad treatment team that sits in. And then we've been fortunate, though, then that they've decided also to stay on for the court hearings also, which is nice because that allows us to bring up people from the jail, like if any probation violation hearings need to take place, we've got representation there, both prosecutor and public defender. But usually kind of the way it goes in court is, we meet the hour or so before court and discuss, and so we have ideally kind of an initial plan that we're going to be going in the court. We've kind of played around with the order of bringing people up, but again, everybody is expected to stay throughout the whole court. Again, that's to support each other, but also for everybody to see kind of what goes on. You want the people that are struggling to see what it's like for people that are doing well, but you also want people that are doing well, that this isn't going to be all flowers and roses all the time, that there can be consequences.
Are there, depending on who is before the court, do each of them have their individual case presented or some aspect of that presented? Do they speak during the, I guess I'm asking if it's similar to like an AA or an NA type of thing.
No, it's not like that. It's a formalistic setting, Mike, but it's more involvement with me and the defendant. There's more discussion between me and the defendant. I will let them talk. I want to get to know this individual. I want to know about their family. I want to know about their job, and so we have an actual discussion there in the courtroom with them. And one of the things I always try to do is the first time someone is there in this program, I want them to know that I appreciate their service that they provided to this country. Thank them. I want to find out where they served, whether or not they were in combat, and I thank them for their service. And I think that kind of sets the tone for them in this program. Anyone new coming in is going to wait to the end of the docket so they kind of see how we do this. But there is a variety of conversations I will have with the defendant, and Teresa will tell you sometimes it's applauding them for their efforts. They've done something well. They did what I expected them to do. But then we have those who don't do what they're expected to do, and they pay the consequences, and they're accountable. Had a gentleman who lied to me in court. Well, that gentleman found out when you lie, there's consequences, and he went to jail. And so we do that, and that's why we're stressing that they know the military life. They know that they had to be accountable in the military, follow the rules, and that's what we're doing in this program.
You indicated that a minimum time, I think I heard that right, the minimum time on the probation through this would be a year and a half, I guess, something like that, year to year and a half. Will there be a problem eventually where you get too many people into it, or for each court session? Or
there's not a problem for me. If I have to extend it out, if I have to do another docket, we'll take as many as need to be. We have, I think, tripled the number of people since we started in just 4 months to the point we are now. And I will tell you, we did it with no additional manpower, no additional funding, and that's one of the good things that I like to tell the taxpayers is there's no additional money going into this. I get paid no more, no one else gets paid anymore, and we're getting the resources of the federal government here to use where it would have been the county taxpayers who did these programs. So we are doing this because of our dedication, and we're just doing the extra time, and that's what we're doing.
And the veterans, as they progress through the phases, they're seen less often. So initially when they come in the program, they're expected to be there every 2 weeks, in addition to going to their probation appointments, in addition to coming to the VA. But that is kind of one of the rewards that, okay, you're doing better, so we'll start extending those out. So, you look at what we have as a full docket, but then you'll see what we actually are seeing that status hearing in court. And the judge actually, we were talking about, how does this differ and how does he get to know the veterans? We had a veteran this past time that progressed to the next phase, and he came down from the bench and shook his hand. And you don't ever see that in a normal court setting. So I think that really touches the veterans and means a lot, when you see him come down and just kind of be there with them.
Okay. You have the court every week, though.
It's every other week right now.
Okay. I was wondering if you staggered them so you could get more in and have them every other week. But and each person that's with the program comes every other week then?
It depends. As Teresa's saying, if they're doing well, I may extend them out for a month, and eventually they may be to a 6-week period.
Okay.
But they'll probably be no longer than that we would extend them out.
Do their progress reports go then to their public or probation officer, or do they come through you, or do they come through both, Teresa?
Well, we do a kind of a combined progress report. So we have, I prepare a progress report from the VA standpoint. So when I'm meeting with them, you know, I get releases signed and all that because we don't ever want it to come back that I'm sharing information I shouldn't be. So they're aware that that includes their drug screens, that includes their compliance. So that's then going over to the probation officer, the judge. You know, eventually that's going to be seen by the public defender, the prosecutor, and all those people that are part of our treatment team. So you have that's one aspect, but then you also have the probation's input too. So he also prepares a report also. So it's kind of nice, he does it like on one side is his report, on the other side's my report. So, and he tries to combine both of them. So we have two progress reports that are put together to one, and that, again, that's where we kind of, the judge gives us ahead of time so he can look at both and kind of bring them together, and then we have that treatment team again to look at how they're doing both from treatment but also from the legal standpoint, also with their probation officer.
Okay. Let me take a very short break to let you know that you are watching. There it is right on our screen, You and the Law. We're talking about Veterans Treatment Court, a very unique and innovative program, a very important program here for folks who have been veterans and found themselves in trouble for one reason or another, and how we're dealing with it within our court system. Our telephone number here, we're still waiting for you to call. There won't be a test later, but there it is, 223-5311. If you have any questions, our experts, Teresa Sichman of the VA and Judge Dennis Adkins, learned judge from our panel at the Common Pleas Court, and they can tell you anything that you would want to know about this program, and it might involve you if you're out there watching. Don't be afraid to call in. Don't think any questions not good enough. They're all good. So you got about 17 minutes and 29 seconds in order to do that. Let me ask if there's anything like, what are the common factors of folks who have served our country and then get into trouble, and if you've seen common patterns, or there's some things that are just unique to individuals?
Well, I think it varies. A lot of people are surprised, you know, that they think maybe originally that we're going to have just younger veterans in part of this, but we do have, you know, a lot of older, other generation veterans, and a lot of those you see, you know, they've been struggling since they got out of the military. So this is their third, fourth, fifth time that they've been involved with the court system. So this is nothing new, but that doesn't mean they can't change. Sometimes it takes that many times to change their behaviors. You know, but some common characteristics, you know, we see that, you know, I think you see in general with anybody struggling with the legal system is, you know, they've gotten into some bad coping skills, you know, some bad coping mechanisms a lot with these veterans. You know, if they're dealing with some pain issues, that's a lot of common things that we deal with the veterans is pain. So, you know, they're looking at ways to deal with that pain, whether it be substance use or whatever else to kind of cope with that. Some of them have got started on pain meds when they were in the military, and then it ends up progressing to getting opiates off the streets and then heroin use, and then somehow you get caught with either the possession charges or you end up doing some theft issues or whatever. But, you know, a lot of these veterans that come back, they come back, especially if, you know, the reservist, that this isn't their career, this is just something they kind of get deployed and they come back. They come back thinking that life is just going to be how it was, but, you know, their jobs aren't there anymore. You know, with the economy, a lot of people don't have jobs anymore as it is. So even though they're supposed to hold the jobs, they're not always able. The companies have folded or whatever else, so they still have to provide for their families. And, and they want to kind of bury what's been going on with them. They don't really want to talk about it. That leads to the marital discord, the family separations. And again, they just are kind of lashing out, and they may not know that they're struggling really. So, the VA also is kind of really focusing on what can we provide for the families too, to help, get them knowledgeable about the veterans dealing with. So, a lot of common threads end up being, they're just struggling. They're having problems reintegrating into society. And, what we've noticed is, it's not really the deployments that cause a problem. It's when they come back into society, because when they get deployed, they get into that, we call that 360-degree readiness. So they're always on edge and all that. But when they come back, and they're no longer in the, they're back into their normal day-to-day life, it's not productive to be in that constant go mode. I mean, their anger gets the best of them. We got several that have dealt with domestic violence issues now, or assaults, or whatever. But again, that transition, they're struggling to get back into society, and they lash out, whether again, drugs, beating up people, whatever it may be. So again, it's that reintegration tends to be what the problem is. I think that's probably the biggest common thread, and just how it presents itself from there.
Judge, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Judge, you talked about dealing with the folks as individuals, which I know you try to do in regular court, but it sounds as though there's more interpersonal relationship here. Do you find that the personnel who turn up in the Veterans Court, do they feel isolated, or do they move from an isolated position to sharing with others in a similar situation?
I think the latter. When they're on regular probation, they're in probation with people from all walks of life. And I've heard some veterans who are convicted felons themselves say, why am I hanging around with all these convicted felons? Well, they don't think of themselves as that for some reason. And you'll hear also the veterans say, well, no one understands what I've been through unless they've been there. So they feel isolation in the regular probation, but when I bring them into the Veterans Treatment Court, they are there with their fellow veterans. They are there with people who have served with them or served in the military. So they have a kindredship with them to get through this program. And I've seen it. We see them when they come to court, they're starting to talk more. They see each other on a regular basis. They are supporting each other. They want their fellow veteran to succeed. We're seeing that. And there's just something about being, a veteran that you want to be with other veterans. And veterans who are listening out there know exactly what I'm talking about, that you don't think people understand unless you've been there. And all of these people understand.
Do you find that there's any age barrier, or is that eliminated with interactions?
Well, there's always age barrier because we have fought different wars. Someone who served in Vietnam is going to have some additional problems or different problems than someone who served in Iraq. We all know that when individuals came back from Vietnam, we knew what PTSD was, but we didn't call it PTSD. When they came back, we didn't treat it. And I know firsthand, my brother had PTSD coming back from Vietnam. I didn't know it at the time. In fact, I've just realized it here in the last couple of years that, yeah, that's what he had. He had all the symptoms. So, and then some of the Vietnam veterans weren't treated the same as our veterans today, which was shameful, but that's the way it happened. All veterans ought to be treated the same who serve our country. So there is some differences, but there's a little saying, once you are a Marine, you're always a Marine. Once you're a Navy guy, you're always a Navy guy, and so forth. So we see that there.
Is there a coordination with the probation department or job skills services to not only help the people with their emotional and mental and perhaps substance abuse issues, also develop job skills? And I don't know, usually if you've enlisted in the service, they assign you to something that you might want to do besides weapons, I guess. So they provide a certain amount of job skills. I don't know if that translates to the outer world once you get out or not, but is that a phase of the program?
Well, it is, and what you mentioned about the job skills. Yes, I mean they do get, especially people that have been in the military. That's been their career. That's the problem is they come out, and yes, they have these great job skills in the military. They're high ranking, but when they come out, there's nothing to put really on a resume with that. I mean, you can say, yeah, I served in the military and I did this, but anymore they want to see certificates or education behind that. And in the military they don't. In the military that meant something. In the civilian life, it really doesn't, unfortunately. So if they've served a good amount of time in the military, coming out, they're kind of back to almost to square one, unfortunately. And we do have a couple of good options. The VA does have a work-based program where that has different aspects. One, that we can put them in what's called like our compensated work therapy, which is a therapeutic employment just to see if they are able to go back to full-time employment. So it's a lot of supervision, and it allows them to really see, can I adhere to a schedule? Can I work full-time? And then also we do have several staff that also will help them find competitive employment in the community if that's what they're looking for, and advocate for someone to hire veterans because there are tax breaks. But then the judge himself has taken it upon him to bring in a couple of people from the community, one being from the Easter Sills, to help with placing them in jobs. So they've got a couple avenues. So, they can't use that excuse, oh, well, I can't find a job. Well, are you meeting with Mr. Heaton? Are you meeting with the VA? No, well, that's why you don't have a job. So, they may have to take something they don't want to do or not like, but again, we're not going to hand them a job. That's part of the program is the accountability. And that's something we really push with them is being accountable and following up. And, we'll provide you the path and the treatment and the services, but you have to do it yourself.
Do you find that the veterans who get in trouble, it happens right after they get out, or does it take a while, or is it not getting acclimated to society and just building up?
It varies, Mike. Everyone treats stress differently. They handle stress differently. They handle transition differently. Some of them are able to get away with some things for a while. They're not caught, so it takes a while. So there's no rhyme or reason of how quickly it happens or when. Like some of them we're seeing are still suffering from scars of Vietnam. They're just coming to the forefront now. So there's no rhyme or reason.
Do you find that as a judge, you're dealing with people who they've either pled guilty or been found guilty, and I don't know if I asked you that or not. If somebody goes to trial and gets found guilty, could they still be in this program, or
well, they could.
From
obviously, if they are sent to prison or jail, they can't be part of the program. But if they're given a chance on probation, then they could be. That's not a criteria that would keep them out.
Okay. How about if they were sent to prison and were released on judicial release, which used to be called shock probation or shock parole? Would they be eligible then also? If they were a veteran and said, look, Judge, I'd like to get out and start anew, and I'd like to be part of this program.
In fact, we have one in the program right now. That was judicial released, and they're in the program right now. So yes, that is a way to get into the program.
Okay. What do you find different about, and I hate to lump everybody in and say just regular criminals, and are they different than these men and women who have committed criminal acts after serving the country?
Some of them, they're vastly different, and I can see just in their demeanor of being in a courtroom. These guys stand in front of me at parade rest, and they're very respectful to the most part to the court, which I think goes back to the military training that they've had. So they're different, and I try to stress to them that what they had was difficult in the military, and if they got through that, they can get through this program. So I think there's a genuine willingness on these veterans to make changes. I think that most of them really do want to change. And again, we're giving them the pathway. We are not changing them. They're changing themselves. And that's what the program is about.
You know, we talked before about some other places the program has originated. And I think you told me Buffalo, New York was one of them. How much earlier than our program here in Montgomery County had that started?
It started around 2008 by accident. There was a judge in Buffalo, New York that ran a specialty court, a drug court, and a mental health court. And he had a person that was on his docket that was struggling, having problems. He just could not figure out how to get this person on the right path. And he understood that this person was a veteran. So he asked his probation officer, who was a veteran himself, why don't you go out in the hall and talk to this guy to see if there's something we can do. And that veteran was able to talk to him on a one-to-one basis, got him turned around, got him back on the right path, and it sort of clicked that, you know, having a veteran talk to a veteran works. And so it went to a veterans court from there. He was the first one that started it. And now we have about 130 of them across the country. Not very many. I'd like to see one in every community, but right now there's 130.
Do you think that, or have there been any studies to show the effectiveness? I mean, I'm getting a sense that you all feel as though it has been effective, even though we've only been at it for 4 months here in Montgomery County. But have there been any independent empirical studies that have shown what the program can do?
Just from talking to the other judges around the country, they believe that it's been very successful. They've seen a lower recidivism rates. To quote the stats to you, I couldn't do that. I don't know if Teresa has them, but I couldn't quote the stats to you. But there's no doubt in my mind that this program works, that it will save taxpayers money by keeping these individuals out of the criminal justice system. It will get them back on track and lower our recidivism rate.
Okay. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I know we wanted to touch on this last topic, which I think is very important, having talked to both of you about this, is a mentoring program. What is that, and how do you see that being implemented?
Well, thanks for asking about that, Mike, because it's one of the most important aspects of this program that I believe, and we just now have gotten it off the ground. We believe that every veteran in this program needs to have a fellow veteran mentor, sort of a friend that they can go to and talk to. We have been very fortunate that the Montgomery County Veterans Commission has seen fit to find us a full-time mentor coordinator whose job is to develop the mentoring program for our court, to find mentors, to work with these individual men. No one has to be that qualified. The only requirement is that they're a veteran and they care about veterans and they want to help. They don't have to be a social worker. We're not looking for social workers. We're looking for somebody to be a friend to these mentors. And we are looking right now. And if your viewing audience, if anyone is interested in helping us with these veterans, we certainly would appreciate you calling the court and letting us know you're interested, and we'll get you in contact with our veteran mentor coordinator and tell you about the program and see if it's something for you.
And is there a coordinator yet involved?
There is.
And who is that?
His name is Norval Henry.
Okay.
He is working with the Montgomery County Veterans Commission. He's going to be at every one of our dockets, and he is acting as a mentor now. He's only been on the job for a couple of weeks, so it's a relatively new position and a new program, but we think this is the final link in the chain that we need for this program.
Okay. Floor Director Sonia, so we have to wrap up here. I think we always kind of wrap up in midstream. It's been great having both of you here. Judge Dennis Adkins, judge at the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court, Teresa Sichman, Veterans Outreach Coordinator for the VA here in town. We've been talking about Veterans Treatment Court, very, very good program, and we appreciate all that you've been doing, not only talking to us, but within the system. You've been watching You and the Law. It's a monthly program designed to bring Montgomery County citizens news of the legal world around them. The executive producer is Judge Mike Brigner. I want to thank all the volunteers behind the scenes who make this program possible each and every time. I've been your producer and host. I'm Mike Monta. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on You and the Law. Good night.